Imagine this, a king who had everything: power, gold, armies, a palace dripping with ivory. Yet he sold his soul for a vineyard, and paid for it with his own blood licked up by dogs in a place where prostitutes bathed. This isn't just another Bible story. This is the darkest, most intense rise and fall in all of Scripture. A wicked queen who slaughtered prophets like cattle, a showdown on a mountain where fire fell from heaven, and one random arrow that ended a dynasty exactly as God promised. If you leave before the end, you'll miss the moment the curse comes full circle in the most chilling way possible. So grab your headphones, turn the lights down, and do not move until the final scene. While you're here, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the bell, because next week Jezebel gets what's coming to her, and it's brutal. Now drop a comment with your city and the exact time you're watching this. I'm reading every single one. Let's begin. The sun rises crimson over the hills of Samaria the day Ahab son of Omri is crowned. The people shout, but the sound feels thin, like it is already afraid of what is coming. 38 years old, tall, broad-shouldered, eyes sharp as a drawn blade. He walks the new palace terrace in a robe heavy with Tyrian purple and gold thread. Behind him, the priests of Yahweh keep their distance. They have heard the rumors from the coast. The princess he has chosen is not merely foreign. She is a priestess of Baal and Asherah, a woman who carries two storm gods in her smile. Ahab does not look back at the priests. He is listening to something else. The low, hungry voice inside him that has always whispered, "Take more." The palace courts overflow with the scent of spiced wine and roasted lamb. Then the procession arrives from the sea. Jezebel steps from her cedar litter veiled in scarlet, gold serpent bracelets climbing her arms like living things. 850 prophets and priests march behind her, some in white linen, some stripped to the waist, eyes rolling white as they chant to the sky. At night they set up sacred poles on the palace roof. The moon catches the carved faces of Asherah, obscene and smiling. Ahab takes Jezebel's hand in front of the throne and kisses the palm that still smells of Sidonian incense. In that moment the covenant with Yahweh cracks like thin ice. No one hears it yet, but the prophets do. They leave the city before dawn, some weeping, some already running. 3 nights later, in the lamplit throne room, Jezebel stands behind Ahab's chair, her fingers resting lightly on his shoulder. She speaks softly, almost lovingly. "Your throne will never be safe while these fanatics of Yahweh breathe your air. They dream of another king, one who kneels to an invisible God." Ahab's jaw tightens. He remembers the priests who refused to bless his wedding. He remembers the way some elders looked away when he passed. He lifts the royal seal. The wax drips blood red. By morning, sealed orders ride out on the fastest horses. Every known prophet of Yahweh is to be arrested and executed. That same night, the first swords come out in quiet villages. Old men who once blessed babies are dragged from their beds. Their wives wake to find blood cooling on the dirt floors. Jezebel stands on the palace roof and watches the horizon for smoke that never rises, because the killings are too swift for funeral fires. While the knives are still wet, Ahab turns his hunger toward legacy. He decides to rebuild Jericho, the city Joshua cursed 8 centuries earlier. No one dares remind the king of the curse spoken that day. Whoever lays Jericho's foundation will do so at the cost of his firstborn. Whoever sets up its gates will do so at the cost of his youngest. Heel of Bethel is given the honor. He smiles when the king chooses him. He lays the foundation stone and buries his eldest son beneath it, still breathing. Years later, when the gates are hung, his youngest is bricked into the gatepost alive. The walls rise tall and proud. The people applaud. But in heaven, something ancient stirs and takes careful note. The ledger is open now, and every name is being written in ink that cannot be erased. One afternoon, when the sky is brazen and the heat shimmers above the palace stones, a solitary figure appears at the outer gate. He wears rough camel hair tied with a leather belt. His feet are black with dust, His eyes burn like coals under the sun. The guards reach for spears, but something in the man's face stops their hands. He walks straight through the courtyards, past courtiers who part like water, until he stands before the throne. Ahab rises slowly. Jezebel's fingers tighten on the back of the chair. The man does not bow. He speaks only 7 words, low and terrible, each one landing like a hammer on bronze. As the Lord, the God of Israel lives, whom I serve, there shall be neither dew nor rain these years, except by my word. Then Elijah the Tishbite turns and walks out the same way he came. No one stops him. By nightfall the wind shifts. The sky turns the color of old iron and locks itself shut. Somewhere far away, a raven spreads black wings and begins a long, patient flight toward a dry brook called Cherith. In the palace, Ahab stands on the roof and stares at the sealed heavens. For the first time in his life, the king feels something colder than ambition. He does not yet have a name for it, but it tastes like fear. Fade out on the silent, starless sky hanging over Israel like a lid on a tomb. The first month, people laughed nervously. Elijah is a madman, they said in the markets. Rain always comes back. By the 6th month, laughter had turned to whispers. The great river Kishon shrank to a seam of cracked mud. Wells that had never failed now stared up with empty stone eyes. In the palace, the royal cisterns still held water, bought with silver and the silence of frightened servants. But even Ahab's horses began to stumble. Children born that year never learned the sound of rain on a roof. Their lullabies were the wind scraping across bare hills like a knife looking for something left to cut. Ahab's face is thinner now. The purple shadows under his eyes look bruised into the skin. He summons Obadiah, the palace steward who secretly fears Yahweh more than the king. Divide the land between us, Ahab says, voice raw. We will ride every spring, every valley. If there is one blade of grass left, the mules must have it, or the army dies, and then the kingdom dies. They ride out at dawn. Ahab east, Obadiah west. Dust rises behind them like smoke from a burning city. Wherever Ahab passes, people fall on their faces, not in reverence, but because they have no strength left to stand. He does not see the mothers hiding skeletal children in doorways. He is looking only for green. While the king hunts grass, Obadiah walks a more dangerous path. Every night for 3 years he has carried bread and water into the wilderness, 50 prophets in one cave, 50 in another, 100 mouths that must never be found. He moves only after moonset, heart hammering so loud he fears the sound will betray him. Some nights Jezebel's search parties pass within arm's reach of the hidden entrances. Obadiah's hands tremble every time he counts the loaves. They are always enough. He does not understand how, but he no longer asks. One day, on a road bleached white as bone, Obadiah sees a figure walking toward him. Camel hair cloak, leather belt, eyes that have stared too long at something brighter than the sun. Obadiah's knees buckle. He knows before the man speaks. Go, Elijah says, voice calm as deep water. Tell your master, Elijah is here. Obadiah falls to the ground. Do you want me dead? He whispers. The moment Ahab hears my words, Jezebel will skin me alive. Elijah does not blink. What I do for the Lord's sake. Go. Obadiah rises, legs shaking like a colt's, and walks toward the king who has become a hunter of ghosts. Ahab rides up in a cloud of dust, face twisted with rage and something close to relief. Is it you, he spits, O troubler of Israel? Elijah stands motionless in the road, small against the king's chariot, impossibly large against the empty sky. I have not troubled Israel, he answers, every word deliberate. But you and your father's house have, because you have forsaken the commandments of the Lord and followed the Baals. The wind dies, even the horses stop stamping. Then Elijah speaks the sentence that will echo for centuries. Now therefore, send and gather all Israel to me at Mount Carmel, along with the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. Ahab's mouth opens, then closes. For one heartbeat, the king looks like a man staring into a grave with his own name carved on the stone. He says nothing. He simply turns his chariot toward Samaria, wheels creaking like old bones. Behind him, Elijah watches the dust settle, and far above, unseen by any eye, the first faint ripple of mercy begins to move across the iron sky. Too high for hope, too quiet for thunder, but moving all the same. Fade out on the empty road stretching between the king and the prophet, both walking toward the mountain where fire will decide who truly rules the heavens. After the rain returned and the slaughter at Kishon, Ahab walked softer for a season. The people sang Elijah's name in the streets, and even Jezebel kept her serpents leashed. One spring evening the king stood on the palace roof and looked down at a small vineyard clinging to the slope just below the walls. It was nothing grand. Old vines twisted like the arms of praying old men, a little stone tower, a winepress cut into the rock. But it caught the last light in a way that made Ahab's chest ache with a feeling he had never fed before. Simple desire. He wanted it, not for strategy, not for wealth. He simply wanted to walk there in the cool of the day and eat grapes from his own hand. He sent a courteous message to the owner, Naboth of Jezreel. "Give me your vineyard. I will pay you its worth in silver, or give you a better one elsewhere." Naboth's reply came back the same day, gentle but unbreakable. "The Lord forbid that I should give you the inheritance of my fathers." Ahab returned to the palace empty-handed. He laid on his ivory bed, turned his face to the wall, and refused bread. Servants whispered outside the door. The king was sulking like a boy denied a toy. Jezebel heard the gossip and came herself. She stood in the doorway in a robe stiff with gold, eyes glittering like obsidian. "Do you now govern Israel?" she asked, voice honey over iron. "Arise and eat bread and let your heart be cheerful. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite." Ahab did not ask how. He never did. He only turned his face back toward the wall and waited, the way a child waits for night to hide what daylight will not allow. That same night Jezebel sat alone at a cedar table lit by one lamp. She wrote letters in Ahab's name, pressed the royal seal into blood-red wax, and sent them to the elders and nobles of Jezreel, men who owed their positions to the throne and their lives to her smile. The instructions were precise. Proclaim a fast. Seat Naboth in a place of honor. Hire 2 sons of Belial to stand and accuse him. You blessed God and the king, meaning you cursed both. Then drag him outside the city and stone him until the inheritance is free. The elders read the letters by lamplight and felt the old fear crawl up their spines. They obeyed before sunrise. Naboth never saw the faces of the men who killed him. The first stone took his sight, the rest took his breath. When it was finished, a quiet message rode back to the palace. Naboth is stoned. He is dead. The next morning Ahab rose early, put on a plain cloak as though modesty could hide what he already knew, and walked down to the vineyard. The dew was still on the leaves. Somewhere a bird sang once and then thought better of it. Ahab stepped across the low stone wall and stood among the vines that were now his. Under his sandal something sticky clung. He looked down and saw the dark stain spreading between the rows, Naboth's blood, not yet soaked fully into the earth. For one heartbeat the king hesitated, almost turned back. Then the old hunger spoke louder than conscience, and he kept walking. He bent and plucked a cluster of grapes, bit into one. The juice ran red over his fingers like a second accusation. That was when the shadow fell across the path. Elijah stood between 2 rows of vines, silent as judgment made flesh. The wind moved his mantle but did not cool the air. Ahab saw him and felt his heart slam once, hard, against his ribs. "Have you found me, O my enemy?" he said, trying to make the words sound like a jest. They came out small. Elijah did not answer the question. He only spoke what had been given him to speak, each syllable dropping like a millstone. "Thus says the Lord, In the place where dogs licked the blood of Naboth, dogs shall lick your blood. Yes, yours. Your house will become like the house of Jeroboam and like the house of Baasha, because you have made Israel to sin. The dogs shall eat Jezebel within the bounds of Jezreel. Anyone belonging to Ahab who dies in the city the dogs shall eat, and anyone who dies in the open field the birds of the heavens shall eat. The vineyard suddenly felt too small for the words. Ahab opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out except the taste of stolen grapes. Elijah turned and walked away between the vines, the same path the king had just taken, only now every step seemed to press the curse deeper into the soil. Behind him Ahab stood alone among the leaves, the morning light turning the blood on the ground black. And for the first time in his life the king understood that some appetites devour the one who feeds them. Fade out on the vineyard, silent now, waiting patiently for the day when the dogs will return to finish what was begun. 3 years have passed since the vineyard. The famine is a memory, the prophets are quiet, and Ahab's heart has grown its old scab back, thicker than before. Now he sits in the gate of Samaria beside Jehoshaphat, the righteous king of Judah, planning war against Syria to reclaim Ramoth-Gilead. 400 prophets, fed, clothed, and paid by Jezebel's table, dance before them, horns of iron on their heads, shouting in unison, "Go up, for the Lord will give it into the hand of the king." Their leader, Zedekiah, strikes the ground with his iron horns and roars that Ahab will gore the Syrians like an ox. Jehoshaphat listens, uneasy. He asks one quiet question. Is there not still a prophet of the Lord here, that we may inquire of him? Ahab's smile is thin as a dagger. There is one, he says, but I hate him because he never prophesies good concerning me, only evil. His name is Micaiah son of Imlah. Jehoshaphat insists. Ahab sends for him with the weary shrug of a man who already knows the ending. They bring Micaiah from the prison where Ahab keeps the men who refuse to lie. His wrists are raw, his face gaunt, but his eyes burn steady. At first he mocks them, repeating the paid prophet's words in a voice dripping with scorn. Go up and triumph. The Lord will give it into the hand of the king. Ahab hears the sarcasm and slams his fist on the throne. How many times must I make you swear to tell me nothing but the truth in the name of the Lord? Micaiah lifts his head. The courtyard falls silent. Then he speaks what he has seen. I saw all Israel scattered on the mountains like sheep that have no shepherd. And the Lord said, These have no master. Let each return to his house in peace. Ahab's face goes white beneath the crown. Micaiah is not finished. He tells them of the heavenly counsel he was shown. A throne, spirits standing left and right, and a lying spirit volunteering to go into the mouths of these 400 prophets so that Ahab will ride to his death. Zedekiah slaps Micaiah across the face. Ahab orders him thrown back into prison on bread and water until the king returns victorious. Micaiah's last words echo off the walls as they drag him away. If you return in peace, the Lord has not spoken by me. The gates close. Ahab turns to Jehoshaphat and forces a laugh. The war council is over. Dawn the next day, 2 armies march toward Ramoth-Gilead. Jehoshaphat rides in full royal robes, gleaming like a target. Ahab wears the plain armor of a common captain, his face hidden beneath a bronze helmet. He has told Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself, but you wear your robes. It is not strategy. It is cowardice wearing the mask of cunning. As the sun climbs, the Syrian king gives his 32 captains one order. Do not fight with anyone small or great, but only with the king of Israel. They are hunting a crown, not a man. The battle begins. From a distance, the Syrian captains see Jehoshaphat's robes blazing in the sun and charge. He cries out. We are not told what he says, only that the Lord helps him. The captains realize their mistake and turn away. The day is chaos and dust and shouting, but Ahab is safe inside his disguise. Then, in the middle of the ordinary terror of war, a Syrian soldier, no one famous, No one who even meant to, draws his bow at random and releases the string. The arrow rises, invisible against the sky, carrying centuries of prophecy on its feathers. It finds the one place Ahab's borrowed armor does not cover, a finger-width gap between the scale joints over his heart. The point drives deep, straight to the feathers. Ahab feels the blow like a hammer of ice. He knows instantly whose arrow it is. He tries to speak, but only blood comes. His driver props him upright in the chariot so the army will not break and run. All afternoon the king bleeds silently, facing the enemy, while the battle rages around the pool of his blood gathering on the chariot floor. At sunset Ahab dies. They turn the chariot toward Samaria. The blood has run out through the floorboards and painted a long red line across the battlefield. When they reach the city, the soldiers take the royal chariot to the pool where the prostitutes of Samaria bathe. They begin to rinse it, scrubbing at the dark crust. The dogs come first, lean palace dogs that have always known the taste of scraps and fear. Then the stray packs from the streets. They lap the water turning pink, licking the chariot boards clean. Exactly where the blood of Naboth soaked into the ground years before, the blood of Ahab now feeds the same dogs. Word spreads through the city like a whisper of doom. In the palace Jezebel hears the shouting at the pool and stands very still. She does not cry. She only closes the shutters against the coming night and waits for the next chapter of the curse to find her. But that is another story. Fade out on the empty chariot, washed clean, standing in moonlight while the dogs scatter into the alleys, bellies full and tongues dripping red. The word of the Lord through Elijah the Tishbite has been fulfilled to the last drop.